Today, I'd like to come back to the core issue of our relationship with mental or emotional pain. And obviously, this is a core issue. What could be more of a core issue than this? So no matter how fancy we get in our discussions about this and that, it always comes back down to something very, very basic: our relationship with emotional pain or mental pain. So it's good to remember that, because we can end up talking, becoming more and more abstruse. But what relevance does it have to this thing of relating to pain? How do we relate to pain? Are some ways of relating to mental pain good and other ways bad, etc., etc.? So already, even in saying that, we've moved away from the topic into a kind of intellectual kind of sphere of things. The thing that we can say that is very basic and very straightforward is that there's two approaches that we generally come across, that people will tell us, or that we will hear, or that we will read. And one approach is to say no to pain, reject it, get rid of it, solve it, fix it, eradicate it, put it off somewhere, jettison it. So that's saying no to pain. And the other approach is to say that we hear of, is to say yes to pain, sit with it, feel it, don't run away from it. Tell yourself you've got to relate to it full on. So those are the two possibilities, and both of them are equally useless, equally nonsensical, in fact. And even more than this, both of them actually come down to the same thing, even though we can't initially see that. They both come down to the same thing because they are both attempts to control, to be in control, to get the right outcome. So anything that involves taking control of the situation so as to obtain the right outcome is useless, and not just useless, it exacerbates the original problem. And if only we could understand that, and if we could only understand that all we know how to do is control in one way or another, then that would be a hugely beneficial insight. So if we start with the first approach first, which is the easiest to point out in terms of it not being at all helpful, saying no to pain and doing something with it, basically. This is the most instinctive thing there is, and we all do this all the time with pain. Pain is an aversive stimulus, so when it comes along, we're averse to it. We don't like it, and we want to get rid of it. So, as Freud said, physical pain evokes the flinch response. If I touch something that's hot, I'm going to flinch away from it. Biologically, this is good. It's good to flinch away from physical pain, generally speaking. So then Freud pointed out that we flinch away from mental pain, mental flinching. And that isn't good, as Freud also noted. It's not good because that's denial, that's repression, etc., etc. And that is the very root of all of our problems, the very root of it, denied pain. Of course, it's not just Freud said that, and Freud's often overlooked and made into a bit of a figure of fun. But he said a lot of good stuff. And if you look at all the other psychiatrists of his time, they weren't saying any good stuff as far as I can see. Just about. He stands above them all head and shoulders because he was thinking about things in a different way. He wasn't afraid to think. And Jung said the same thing. Jung said very, very clearly that the root or cause of all mental illness is the refusal of us to feel our legitimate mental pain. You couldn't get more straightforward than that. So, with regard to this particular tactic of pushing the pain away, or separating it from us, or disowning it, you're no pain of mine. I don't know you. What are you doing here? You've come to the wrong address, boy. Off you go. So what we can say about that, to make it kind of clear, is to say, supposing you had a kind of super quantum computer that allows you to run the whole universe from beginning to end, however long that takes, and I don't know how long that takes. It could be, we'll just say arbitrarily, it could be 500 billion years, who knows? I don't have the figures at my fingertips, and it doesn't really matter. But suppose you could do that, and then supposing you populated this universe with people trying to distance themselves from their own pain or get rid of their own emotional pain. And supposing you ran that universe 500 billion times. So that's a lot of opportunity to see if it works. What we can say is that absolutely, no matter how many hundreds or thousands of billions of times we run this experiment of running the whole universe from beginning to end and getting everyone in it to try and separate themselves from their pain, not once ever will a single person ever manage to do that. So that's just a fancy way of saying it's not possible. That really isn't possible. And when we really understand that, because we like to kid ourselves and believe, well, maybe I've got a chance, maybe I'll win the lotto, maybe whatever. When we really understand the sheer finality of that impossibility, we'll stop going there. Forget it. It's pure wish fulfillment. It's pure denial of reality. But then what we don't see, so that's easy to say, but what we don't see is that saying yes to our emotional or mental pain is no good either. It's a mere manipulation. It's mere trickery on our part. We have worked out that saying no doesn't work, so we think, okay, saying no doesn't work, I'll try saying yes. But the underlying agenda has not changed at all. The underlying agenda is always the same. I want to be rid of the pain that I'm in, and of course I am. Of course I do. And so if I can't get rid of it by saying no to it, I'll try and get rid of it by saying yes to it. The idea being that if I accept the pain, then it'll go, won't it? You can imagine how many times this question has been addressed to psychotherapists. Maybe, if I accept the pain, will it go away? If I sit with it, will it go away? And the answer is no, it won't go away. Which is hard to take, really, but of course it won't go away. Because we don't mean it. We're not accepting anything. If I accept in order to get rid of something, I'm not accepting it. It's just a trick. So in that case, and that can be understood fairly quickly and fairly clearly, like you can fool other people maybe, but you can't fool life itself with postures and attitudes and pretending. So that seems to baffle. That seems to be no good at all, because if we can't say yes to it and we can't say no to it, what the hell can we do? But of course, what we need to understand is all of this is manipulation. All of this is insincerity. Because we don't really want to sit with the pain. We're forcing ourselves to do it because we think there'll be a good outcome, which is exactly what we do with everything in our whole lives. We behave mechanically in this way. We do something in order to obtain an outcome. We're looking for the profit in it. We're looking for the right result. And as adults, we've been brought up to operate in this way. Everything we do is calculated just about to get a result. And although this can pay dividends in a lot of practical terms, it doesn't pay any dividends in psychological terms. It's only one thing does, and that is sincerity. And that may not sound very scientific, but it simply means just being honest and being true and not attempting to make ourselves be what we're not, or believing that we are what we're not, believing our own talk, believing our own ideas about what we want and what we don't want. And it is very, very, very difficult once we pass into the stage of being adults to be honest or sincere in that way, because we can't be sincere on purpose for the same reason that we can't get feel pain on purpose because it suits us too, because we think there's going to be a good reason for it. If I'm being sincere on purpose, it's because I hope to get something out of that sincerity, so it's an act, it's a device, a strategy. We're full to the brim of strategies, and if we ever go and see in this modern world of ours a therapist or counsellor or whatever, they'll give us strategies. They love strategies. Strategies, it's like it's actually exciting for us to talk about all these lovely strategies. Well, I've got this strategy and that strategy. It's kind of, as I've heard someone say, it's like boys with toys. It's kind of that boys with toys. And that's fine. That's a kind of developmental stage, obviously. But it's no good for therapy. Boys with toys is no good for therapy. Strategies is no good for therapy. Because we have to get a bit more real. Otherwise, we're just fooling ourselves or fooling the person we're pretending to be, in whatever way, supposedly helping. So the challenge is to cut through the bullshit, essentially. And this is something that is well known in experiential psychotherapy, but not so well known in the types of therapy which are favoured by the health services these days, i.e. quick therapies which don't cost too much money and will give the result that we want in a certain number of sessions, goal-orientated therapies. So whatever we learned in psychotherapy during how many years that psychotherapy developed, we're very, very quickly forgotten, purely for financial reasons, because financial reasons is the only reasons that healthcare systems understand or care about, because that's the nature of the beast. They're like any corporation, any organisation. And even if we say, okay, well, a state-run mental health service isn't being run to make money, it's still running on money, and the people in control of that don't want to spend beyond their budget, obviously enough. So that's why we love solution-focused nonsense in the way that we do, because we simply can't afford the real thing because it takes too long. So that's fair enough, but it's no good to all the people that imagine that they might be being helped in some gimmicky kind of quick way, in some kind of band-aid type way. But to come back to the point, this whole issue of being sincere, how do we be sincere if we can't be sincere on purpose? And it kind of sounds maybe that I'm jumping from one subject to another, but I'm not. It's the same thing. And the answer is to notice that we are insincere, because that's no problem, because we are. I can guarantee you we're all insincere just about a lot of the time, most of us. Apart from saints and enlightened gurus and meditation masters or whatever, we leave them out of it. Don't meet many of them anyway. So the first thing to do is observe that we are insincere. And as Krishnamurti says, not in exactly these words, in that observation there is sincerity. Observing is always sincere. So when we are observing our own insincerity, we're being sincere without intending to. It's not an intentional thing, because we don't intend to observe. How can you intend to observe? You'd have to know what it is you want to observe then. So then jumping back to relating to pain, we cannot, by any intention, by any effort, relate sincerely, genuinely to our own pain. It's always an artificial situation if we find ourselves trying to do that. And it's very common to hear about sitting with pain. So if anyone ever talks to you about sitting with pain, that is it's an artificiality. You don't sit with pain. Pain's an aversive stimulus. You don't sit with it. So if you're in emotional pain and you try and sit with it, you're being artificial. You're caught up in an artificial posture. So you're adding another level of complication to the whole damn thing. And it feels bad, and it doesn't do you any good. It feels really bad to be sitting with pain, and it isn't going to do you a damn bit of good. Quite the opposite. You're trapped in a delusion if you think that's going to do you any good. It's artificial. What helps, and it's very hard for us to see this, because we are a profoundly artificial culture, completely, as has been said so many times, divorced from all things natural. We just don't get that. Natural. We love putting our own spin on things, doing our own thing, creating our own situations, thinking, well, this sounds good, that sounds like a good idea. In other words, we love operating on the basis of the rational, purposeful mind. So what really, really helps is to shed artificiality. Not that you can just shed it all in one go, but you can be in the process of shedding artificiality. So you shed a kind of layer of artificiality. And underneath it is another layer, and you can shed that, but it's a process of shedding artificiality, which cannot be done in an artificial way. It has to happen naturally, of course, needless to say. So it's no good me kidding myself that I'm sitting with pain if I really, really don't want to, and I'm not going to want to, because it doesn't make sense that anyone would want to sit with pain. So we have to forget about that little thing that people say very unhelpfully. So what it is I observe myself flinching from the pain. The flinching happens all by itself, as Alan Watts says. The flinching from the pain is part and parcel of the pain. You can't separate the two. Pain wouldn't be pain if we didn't flinch from it. That's how we know it's pain. That's what pain is. It's something we just have to flinch from, because it's so painful. Because that's what pain does. It makes you flinch. So what we do, we observe ourselves flinching from the mental, emotional pain. In other words, we notice ourselves not relating to our pain. No bullshit about saying, I have to relate to the pain. Oh my God, I have to relate to it. There's no bullshit about that. It's just I notice myself trying as hard as I can, in whatever way I can, not to relate to the pain. And it's a very gentle thing in comparison to this business of supposedly sitting with the pain. It's very gentle, and it's not artificial. So maybe that's just two different ways of saying the same thing. It's very gentle, because I'm not trying to make myself be anything that I'm not. I'm flinching. I'm trying to not relate to my pain, and I'm just observing, not in a critical way, obviously. It's not that I'd be observing myself and condemning myself and castigating myself and reprimanding myself for not relating. I'm just observing because it's true. That's what's happening. There's no good, there's no bad, that's what's happening. Good and bad, that's the stupid old thinking mind imposing its categories on everything and thinking its categories matter a damn, which they don't and never did. They only matter to the thinking mind. So I notice myself not relating to my mental or emotional pain. And in the language of mindfulness, you could say, well, that's being present with myself. I'm not bullying myself, trying to get myself to do certain things or not do other things. I'm being with myself in a non-judgmental way. But in being present with myself and noticing myself striving to not relate to my pain, I'm being sincere. And actually, I am actually sincerely relating to my pain. Because if I can see that I'm spending my whole time, or a lot of my time, trying not to relate to my pain, to see this is itself painful. That's a painful awareness. So I didn't intend to relate to that pain, because if I did intend, it would be a trick. I'm just relating to it because it's there and I'm seeing it. So what I'm doing now, without meaning to, is I'm being sincere without meaning to. I'm relating to my own pain without meaning to. And this can happen on as many levels as necessary. No matter what level of insincerity I'm operating on, I can always notice that level of insincerity. And no matter what level of pain avoidance I'm on, because the emotional pain avoidance is like an onion as well, there's many layers of that, I just keep on noticing it and keep on noticing it. And noticing is the one thing, observing is the one thing that is natural. That thing is natural. This is natural to us. Techniques and strategies, anything that comes out of the thinking mind, anything that's told to us by the rational spokespeople for the rational society which we live in. We have technology to change this. Anything else is artificial. We don't need anything else artificial. We've got we are artificial to the core. Our whole world is artificial. Our attitudes are artificial. Our beliefs, our pastimes, so much artificiality. Constructs, so many constructs that we've been absorbed in, lost in. But the one thing that is always available to us is the observing of whatever it is. And that observing is always sincere, and it's always perfectly natural and perfectly organic. We don't have to strive to do it. Okay, thanks for watching.